So, you've chosen the good path. You've decided to, spare the Night Song, and as such, have incurred the grace of Selune. This means that now you've chosen your path for Shadowheart, which means now your build is going to change dramatically. Unlike the other counterpart to this video, which if you would like to go and see that one as well, I highly recommend it, we are going to be doing a full respec of Shadowheart here, changing her subclass to Life Domain, because now that we are under the influence of a different deity, it makes sense to change to that deity's domain, as well as giving us a ton of benefits. So I'm going to go through levels 1 to 6 quite quickly, as the only thing that's really going to change is our subclass features, keep the same spells, cantrips, whatever I suggested in the previous video, but for now let's just quickly go over it. With that Life Domain, we're going to be getting Bless and Cure Wounds for free, which is awesome, as well as our subclass feature Disciple of Life. Whenever we cast a healing spell, the target regains additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. Pretty awesome. Again, our cantrips remain the same, and our ability scores will also remain the same. That is not going to change, I'm just going to fix them very quickly. Perfect. At level 2, we do get a new action. Instead of Invoke Duplicity, we now have Preserve Life, which is which uses our Channel Divinity to just do a flat amount of healing. That is equal to, I believe, 3 times our Cleric level. No, there's a calculation for it. But basically, you're gonna basically just have a solid amount of flat healing that when we get into higher levels, it's gonna heal a lot. I'm not exactly sure how it's calculated off the top of my head. I know it's something to do with your cleric level, and there's like a formula to it, but I'm dumb. So we're just gonna pretend that we're just gonna look over it, but just know that you have a powerful healing option now. And now also we get to prepare our spells. Like I said, I'm just going to quickly go over these. We're going to basically keep the same things that we said about before, except I'm going to add in Shield of Faith instead of Inflict Wounds for this one. And we'll grab, since we technically have an extra slot now, let's grab Command. With Cleric level 3, we are going to be getting some extra Cleric spells, including Aid and Lesser Restoration, added to our spell list automatically, giving us more rooms to add something like Prayer of Healing, and I might remove Command here and grab Spiritual Weapon as well. At Cleric level 4, we are going to be grabbing our first feat, and you can technically sub in another feat at this point, but I am going to take the ability score improvement first, and bump up our Wisdom. We'll get to the other feat I will be selecting later. As for our cantrip, take whatever you like, as I said. At Cleric level 5, we are going to be able to get our hands on Destroy Undead like we did before, but also level 3 spells like Revivify and Beacon of Hope are automatically added to our spell list. And for our level 3 spells, we're obviously going to be taking Spirit Guardians like we did before, as well as Mass Healing Word because now it's even more valuable. And now I'm also going to suggest maybe picking up something from the level 2 slot might be nice. Enhanced Ability or Warding Bond could also be really good, so pick your favourites here. At Cleric level 6, we are going to be getting our subclass feature as well as our additional Channel Divinity charge, and as such we're going to be grabbing Blessed Healer, which means healing others now heals us as well. When you cast a healing spell of level 1 or higher on another creature, you regain 2 hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. So basically now we have our level 1 feature, but it also affects us, meaning that we are basically constantly going to be healed up, which is good. We want the healer to live. We also do get another level 3 spell at this point. Take whatever you like, it really doesn't matter. Now, this is where the build is going to diverge for a bit. When I wanted each version of Shadowheart here, both good and evil, to get a certain something at beyond level 6. Like, once you've made that decision, you get a new ability of some such that you wouldn't normally get if you just went full Cleric. So we're going to take a quick 2-level dip into Paladin. Because I feel like, again, there's this whole theme of, like, light and dark with Shadowheart, radiant and necrotic, shall we say. So I kind of wanted to focus on radiant damage for this build, both through the cleric spells and through alternate means. And since we a huge part of Shadowheart's questline is getting a legendary weapon depending on what choice you make. Let's actually make use of it. So we're going to be going into Paladin for a bit, specifically Oath of Devotion, because that's kind of the light-focused one, and again, Selune is kind of about the moon and all that, so it makes sense. This is going to give us Holy Rebuke, allowing us to grant an ally a Vengeful Aura that deals an additional 1d4 radiant damage to anyone who hits them with a melee attack. Not really important. I just feel like Oath of Devotion makes the most sense, but you could go with Oath of Patience or Vengeance if you want. Then at Paladin level 2 we are going to be grabbing Divine Smite. This means that we are going to be able to add radiant damage to our weapon attacks that use our spell slots, and because we are mostly a full caster, we're going to have very high spell slots, meaning that we can do a lot of radiant damage with our attacks. This will turn Shadowheart into a bit of a nuke. We also do get to choose a fighting style at this level. Now, if you wanted to just go with a shield and a spear, and just grab another ability score improvement, that works totally fine. In that case, pick up the dueling feat, or if you just wanted to wield fighting style, but if you just wanted to wield the spear in 2 hands, grab great weapon fighting. But since I wanted to do something a little bit different with this build that wasn't just spear and shield or spear on its own, because I think that'd be a bit boring, I wanted to try and be unique, even though those are completely valid playstyles and I would actually say they are probably the more powerful option overall. I wanted to try something a little bit different, so none of these fighting styles are really going to work for us, so we might as well just pick defense for the little bit of extra armor class it would give us. We also do get to get a Paladin spell, and unfortunately none of these really work for us because we dumped Charisma. We don't really need Charisma even though we're taking Paladin levels, but we do get a spell, so I don't know, Shield of Faith, Divine Favor, anything you like, doesn't really matter. Now we're going to be leaving Paladin immediately, and we're actually going to be taking a third multi-class, and I find this one to actually be quite valuable, although you can choose to take this now or at the end, it's entirely up to you. We're going to be going with Fighter. We need Fighter for a couple of reasons. Number one, the 2-weapon fighting style, because we are actually going to be dual wielding with this build. And it's not the kind of dual wield you might be expecting. With 2-weapon fighting, it allows us to add our ability modifier to the damage of our offhand attacks, so we definitely want it, and I want to come to Fighter for another reason anyway. That reason being Fighter level 2 for Action Surge. Now obviously everybody thinks that Action Surge on melee and spellcasting builds like Blaster Casters and like Paladins or Pure Fighters or Rangers or whatever, Action Surge is extremely valuable to have, getting that second action. But nobody realizes that yes, it's great for getting off those extra attacks, but on a healing build, especially one in Honor mode for example, where healing might be a lot more valuable, Action Surge suddenly can come in really clutch, because you could do a massive round of healing with Action Surge. Big healing spell like Mass Healing Word or a Mass Cure Wounds, Action Surge, and then do it again, basically getting to bring your whole party up to full maybe in a single turn, which is extremely valuable. I don't think many people actually considered the implications of Action Surge on healing builds, but it can absolutely work, and since we're already taking one level of Fighter, might as well take another. Now we're going to be leaving Fighter. Again, we don't really need a subclass from this, and we're just going to go back to Cleric for the rest of our levels. This is going to allow us to pick up level 4 spells, and I need to redo my whole spell list again, because of course I do. I actually recommend both level 4 options, that being Banishment and Freedom of Movement, and we'll just pick up the rest of the ones we already had. I think that sounds like a good idea. Yep, yeah, that was it. Perfect. And finally, at Cleric level 8, we are going to be getting our next feat, and as such, we are going to be grabbing Dual Wielder, which is going to allow us to dual wield 2 weapons that aren't light. Now, yes, we are getting this at the final level, which is why I would probably recommend that you would actually take this as your first feat, rather than your second, but the way this whole video is structured, it's a bit strange, but I feel like you should take Dual Wielder as your first feat and then take your ability score improvement here. Yes, this does mean our stats are going to be a bit lower across the board, but with the way this build is kind of set up with the ability to attack with our bonus action, and that sort of thing, and the fact that we're mainly going to be focused on healing, with our spells anyway. It's not a huge deal that our base stats are a bit lower, because I wanted this build to have the ability to basically kind of do everything: healing, bit of melee, bit of ranged spells. Again, it's not the most optimized build, but if I just said make your standard life cleric for that everybody on the internet's already told you to do, what the hell's even the point of making this video? So this is why I've kind of gone for something a bit more unique. But with level 8 of Cleric, we also do get something really interesting: Divine Strike Radiant, adding an extra 1d Radiant to one of our attacks once per turn. This stacks with Divine Smite, so you can Divine Smite an enemy and then get even more Radiant damage on top of that, which I think is super, super cool. So yeah, absolutely love picking this up here. And we also get to add another spell. And that is the build. Overall, what you're getting out of this build is it's a weird mix of martial, healing, and casting. Because you get all your usual cleric spells that can deal damage, like Spirit Guardians, Guiding Bolt, Spiritual Weapon, but you're also getting the added benefit of being able to use things like Divine Smite, stacking it with Divine Strike Radiant, the ability to dual wield, which I'll get into in a minute, and just a bunch of different things that honestly I feel like make this build feel really unique, and while still being powerful, because trust me, as you will see in the combat footage at the end of this, this build does not sacrifice power. But anyways, let's get into the equipment. First of all, let's get the most interesting and obvious thing out of the way: the weapons. Obviously, we're using Selune's Spear of Night. This is the legendary weapon you get for siding with Selune in Act 2, and as such, you know, we get a few cool things with this. Selune's Blessing, you gain advantage on wisdom saving throws and perception checks. Cool. You get automatic dark vision. We already have this, so whatever. It's a +3 spear, which is nice, but it also is going to give us some 2 cool abilities. We get the ability to cast Moonbeam at level 3, allowing us to use our concentration to make a pillar, but deals 3d10 radiant damage to anyone touching it, and we can move it around as a bonus action on our turns, which is pretty good. But we also get a unique cantrip called Moon Mote. Illuminate the area around you with wisps of moonish light? Moonish light, that's a new one. That make movement difficult for your enemies and bolster your allies' damage. At the start of their turn, each hostile creature within the light must succeed a wisdom saving throw, or they must treat the lighted area as difficult terrain. Each ally within the light deals an additional 1d4 radiant damage on a hit with melee attacks. You can use this once per long rest. I think this is really, really cool. It makes perfect sense for a build like this to grab this, and again, you just get it for beating the main story anyway, so you don't even have to go out of your way for it. But your option for your offhand, you have 2, but I've gone with this one. This is the Sacred Star. On a hit, inflict 1 turn of Radiating Orb upon the target. Now, for those of you that don't know, Radiating Orb gives the affected enemy a -1 to attack rolls for each remaining turn. It also sheds a bright light on an area surrounding it. Reduce the duration by 2 each time the entity makes an attack. So basically, this means that you can kind of stack this ability up, making it so you're harder to hit, which kind of makes up for a slightly lower AC with this build. And so it's kind of it's a pretty debilitating status effect, and it's going to synergize with a lot of different equipment that we already have. So basically, for free with our offhand attack, we just get to, you know, bonk an enemy on the head with the Sacred Star, and they're going to get this. The Sacred Star is an Act 3 weapon, but if you wanted an Act 1 option, although I didn't really want to use this because it belongs to a different deity, the Blood of Lathander would also work really well for this build. But really, use whatever you like, it doesn't exactly matter. We also get a Sanctified Weapon. Undead creatures struck by this weapon are possibly turned, so that's nice. We also do get the Dawn Burst Strike ability, which would allow us to deal additional radiant damage equal to our proficiency bonus, and can blind enemies, but we can't use it while this weapon is in our offhand, unfortunately, so you might want to swap it to the main hand so you do get that ability, because you can still cast the spells that Selune's Spear of Night would give you while it's in the offhand, so you can kind of mix and match if you want this to be in the main hand or the offhand. It's entirely up to you. And we also have a ranged weapon option here, the Fabricated Arbalest, which actually has some unique aspects to it. It's a kind of a regular heavy crossbow, but it does get an interesting ability in Illuminating Shot. Fire a shimmering bolt that inflicts 1 turn turn of Radiating Orb upon the target, so another way of dealing Radiating Orb. Now here's the thing, this is a free bonus action attack, meaning that it doesn't require a short or long rest to use again, so even if you decided not to go the dual wielding route, if you get this crossbow, you still always have a bonus action attack, which will lines up with the build quite nicely. So if you decide to go that spear and shield route, this is another way to get that bonus action attack. But also we have Dazzling Ray, unleash a beam of brilliant light that blinds all creatures in its path. This is kind of a diet version of a sunbeam that you can use once per short rest. So if you went with if you didn't want to grab the Blood of Lathander, this is kind of a substitute. But if you did grab the Blood of Lathander, well, you now basically have 2 sunbeams, which is pretty cool, even though if this is a bit of a weaker version. So, let's get into the equipment. First off, Wapira's Crown. When healing another, the wearer regains 1d6 hit points. This is just another way of keeping your own health up while you heal others. You can swap this out for whatever you like, it doesn't really matter. This just felt like it was a good fit that you can grab in Act 1. Next up is the Luminous Armour. Whenever the wearer deals radiant damage, they cause a radiant shockwave, which basically means that they can inflict Radiating Orb in any, in a 3-meter radius around the enemy. So any enemies that are around the enemy that you hit, including with the ranged attack from the Arbalest, will get Radiating Orb on them, spreading the light around. This is super, super good. And again, spreading like light around the arena feels really on theme for this kind of character in this direction for this build. With Luminous Gloves, this kind of just stacks more Radiant Orbs. Whenever we deal radiant damage, the target will receive 2 turns of Radiating Orb. So just for example, by attacking with the Sacred Star, which deals radiant damage anyway, it has a plus d4, that is going to be 4 turns of Radiating Orb, which means a -4 to attack rolls, which basically is going to make you and your allies basically unable to be hit by regular attacks. But then again, you can, whenever you Divine Smite with the Selune Spear, you're also going to get this. Whenever you do damage with Moonbeam or any of your radiant dealing spells, you're going to get this. So you're just going to get off this status condition all the time, and I'm pretty sure there's no limit to the stacks, so you can basically make your enemies just completely debilitated, which I think is awesome. But since we are throwing around this status effect so much, we might as well also grab the Boots of Stormy Clamour. Whenever the wearer inflicts a condition, for our case being Radiant Orb, upon a hostile creature, they also inflict 2 turns of Reverberation. Reverberation means the affected entity has a -1 penalty to Strength, Dex, and Con saves per remaining turn, and when the entity has 5 or more turns of Reverberation, it takes 1d4 thunder damage and possibly falls prone. This basically just means that we're going to be able to deal extra bits of thunder damage as well as our radiant damage. And between our enemies not being able to hit us because their attack rolls are much lower, and the fact that they have to keep getting up from being prone over and over again, this basically just means that this build is just perfect for healing our allies and debilitating our enemies. It's actually surprisingly effective despite our mediocre stats. Now, the amulet here is the Amulet of Selune's Chosen, which I just had to pick it for the theme, but really you can replace this with whatever you like. It gives you the Selune's Dream cantrip, which allows you to deal a d8 of healing to anyone that you touch, but the target could possibly fall asleep. So technically the spell can work offensively too, but it has a pretty low chance of inflicting that sleep on enemies, unfortunately. It's mainly just here for the thematic reason, but if you wanted to swap this out, I originally envisioned this build as having a 17 in Wisdom to start, bumping it up with an ability score improvement, then using Khalid's Gift to bump it up by another 1, which is an amulet that can bump your Wisdom up by 1. But the other stats kind of suffered because of it, so I didn't really want to go with that in the end, but feel free to swap this out for that if you kind of want to try that strategy. Of course, because we're a healing build, we're going to be using the Whispering Promise. Whenever you heal a creature, it gains Bless. It gains a 1d4 bonus to attack rolls, saving throws for 2 turns. It's Bless. Basically, not only are you going to be healing everybody constantly, you're also going to be giving them Bless constantly, which is broken. It's broken as hell. Especially when you consider this ring is obtained, I think, in Act 1. That is super broken. And finally, the Callous Glow Ring. The wearer deals an additional 2 points of damage against creatures that are illuminated. Any creature that has Radiant Orb on them is illuminated, so it's just more damage across the board. There is also a ring that adds that gives other extra turns of Radiating Orb as well, if you wanted to slap that on, but I felt like this made more sense since we're getting so much turns of Radiating Orb anyway. So yeah, that is the build. Overall, I mean, I know it's a weird one. And the progression of this build might feel a bit strange, but at the end of the day, you're still getting the full healing cleric thing. This build is never not going to be useful, but when you get all the equipment, those extra multi-classes, you know, all the feats lined up, you're going to feel like an absolute monster, dealing radiant damage left, right, and center, debilitating your enemies completely while healing your allies. You're going to just feel extremely valuable to the team. Now, I'm going to just let the combat footage play out on this one. There's not really too much end of video stuff I really want to get into here, especially with the kind of flow of this kind of video being obviously a lot different than my usual stuff. So I'm just going to end it here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.
On I go.
For your spine is mine.